Welcome, everybody, to the Cone of Shame Veterinary Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Andy Rourke. Guys, I am talking to my good friend, Dr. Peter Weinstein, about the enshittification of veterinary medicine. Peter wrote an interesting article on this. It's a concept I was familiar with and always kind of like to think about, and he applies it to veterinary medicine to make the case. He thinks we're in an enshittification cycle in vet medicine, but Peter believes there's a way out. He believes that we can stop this, we can break away, and we can add value back into vet medicine, both for our clients and our patients and for our doctors and techs and practitioners. And so this doesn't have to be a slippery slope where just it becomes more and more extractive with all the good things going to the shareholders. We don't have to live that way. We don't have to be that way, and we can reverse that. And so anyway, this is a fun episode. I love Peter. He's one of my favorite people to talk to. He's got a lot of just big ideas, and he's also got a lot of practical experience and action steps. And we come out in a really good place, and he's got a pretty solid call to action that honestly got me pretty fired up and like, yeah, let's get back to work in the clinic. This is good stuff. So anyway, guys, I hope you'll like this uplifting episode of the Cone of Shame Show. Let's get into it.
This is your show. We're glad you're here. We want to help you in your veterinary career. Welcome to the Cone of Shame with Dr. Andy Rourke.
Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Peter Weinstein. How are you, my friend?
Dr. Rourke, I am doing well. It is an honor, a pleasure, a thrill, and I'm running out of adjectives to be in the same ether with you.
You are too kind. You are too kind. For those who don't know you, I think you are one of the most respected thought leaders in veterinary medicine. I say that without any sort of caveats on it. You are a veterinarian. You are a disruptor and an innovator. You are a lecturer. I saw you at VMX in Orlando. I expect probably by the time this comes out, you will have already been lecturing at Western Vet Conference in Las Vegas. You are doing a ton of work right now around thinking around where the industry is going. I really like your thoughts on technology and innovation. You are a champion of the independent veterinary practice owner, and I see you doing a ton of work around supporting people who are interested in independent practice ownership. And I think that's healthy for our profession. I really love that. I truly think that our profession needs to have that pathway open. I'm not saying that people need to take it or that it's what they need to do, but I think that option needs to be there. And I think the whole system is healthier as long as that exists. So thank you for that. I want to jump right in and say I really got excited when I saw a piece that you wrote. You wrote it on LinkedIn as sort of an article, and it was called The Enshittification of Veterinary Medicine. And I immediately liked it and saw it because, so enshittification is a term by Cory Doctorow that was created around technology. And so I saw this and obviously do a lot of stuff on social media, and I look at a lot of the technology stuff and everything. And enshittification is the idea. I'll sort of sum it up here as I understand it, and then I'm going to let you sort of tell me if this is how you're looking at it. The basic idea in tech companies, as we would see, they would start in a very altruistic manner. And the model was be good to the clients or the customers, make life good for them. And then it was be good to the business partners and get them in, and don't worry about making money. Just be good to people and get them in. And then once you've got these relationships with your business partners, once you've got these relationships with the clients, they've built the habit around working with you, and they've kind of invested a lot of time and energy back into you, and maybe their friends are now a part of this network that you've built and things like that. Then you switch over and you start to be less good, and you start to extract, more from your business partners. And then ultimately you start to extract more from your customers. And that's how we end up with something like, say, Facebook, where in the beginning, it's just this social network. There's no monetization of it. It's all about connecting you and what do you want and how do you, hang out with your friends. And then suddenly we get, business partners in there. And then if you're a business partner, it becomes more and more pay to play and more about you getting a smaller cut, getting less and less of what was originally attractive to you. And then ultimately you end up with the users, and they now have a service that is driven by an algorithm that's really about making money, and their experience is covered in advertisements and things like that. And a lot of the stuff that they really want are add-on services and behind paywalls and the whole thing. And you think, how in the world do we get here? And that, in my estimation, is the process of enshittification. And so that's kind of where it started. And then I saw you write about this, and you started to write about the enshittification of veterinary medicine. And so let me stop here, and I want to let you lay out your vision of what this looks like when you say this.
Thank you. It's interesting because I read Corey's book, and I listened to he was on the Daily Show as well. And I thought back to the 70s. I know it's hard to believe. When I was working in the veterinary profession, and I read All Creatures Great and Small.
Okay.
And this summer, I had the opportunity to go to the UK and visit the venue in Thirsk, where James Herriot, Dr. White, really practiced. And it brought back memories as to why I entered veterinary medicine, which is for the patient, for the clients, to make a difference. And now I grew up in New York, and I worked in a practice starting when I was 15, cleaning cages and, just watching what it took. And they made a good living. Let's just be honest. It was a very simple approach to things. We didn't have nearly the lab work, and we didn't do nearly as much imaging. We didn't have all the answers. Heartworm medication was once a day. Flea and ticks were bombs and other toxic waste. But it was really about the veterinarians for whom I worked and the passion and purpose that they worked for, which was the clients and the patients. And the stakeholders were the clients, the patients, and the community that they contributed to. And then it kind of started to move in a slightly different direction. And I'm not blaming any one thing, but the human-animal bond became a significant focus of what we were able to do. And 1994, when you were barely born, the super products started to become released. And we started to have a plethora of television ads driving people in, and products that had improved the human-animal bond through
You're talking about like Frontline and things like that? Is
I'm
that what you're
talking about?
94?
Program, Interceptor, Frontline, Advantage, Revolution, all of those products in the mid to late 90s changed where pets slept, from the doghouse to the bedroom. And you get Paris Hilton carrying her Chihuahua in her purse. And all of these things allowed us as veterinarians to take better care of pets. And we have been able to do so. Concurrently, in the 90s, we started to see the consolidation of veterinary hospitals by private equity and venture capital funds to create these bigger conglomerates that had stakeholders of the pet, the parent, the community, but also stockholders.
Yeah.
And what has happened to a degree is we have moved from a profession, and by the way, it's not just corporatization, there are other variables in it, but we've moved from a profession that was purpose and passion driven to a profession that is a bit more profit driven. And I think sometimes to the detriment of our primary stakeholders, which are the pets and the people. And I think that's what the enshittification of veterinary medicine is all about, is losing the focus and the direction for what motivated me to do what I do and have done for over 50 years.
So I went on this tear about a year ago. I started reading a bunch of Wendell Berry. Do you ever read Wendell Berry? They call him the farmer poet. So Wendell Berry was this guy in the 80s who was going to be the next big writer. And he went to New York. He was writing for the New Yorker, which was the big magazine at the time. And at some point he was just like, I hate this. I hate it here. And so he left and he went back to the small town in Kentucky. And there's a sort of famous story of the editor-in-chief at the New Yorker being like, son, do you know what you're giving up here? Like, this is great. And he goes back. And so he goes back and he writes about the beauty of the simple life and on being on the simple farm. And I really loved his writing. I think everybody should read some Wendell Berry just to kind of get reminded of sort of where we came from and the beauty of nature and life. And then after I read some Wendell Berry, it was funny. I was reading some other things and I saw an interview with Charlie Munger, the legendary investor. And someone said to Charlie, because he's so big on like Costco and Walmart and all these investments, and they said, don't you worry that your investments are destroying small towns? And Charlie Munger said, I grew up in a small town and people romanticize them. but they're really not that great. There's nothing going on there. And it kind of spun me around because it's so contrary to Wendell Berry, who's like, this is wonderful. And so let me ask you here, sort of, Peter, and say, look, I hear what you're saying. And also, as I look at the new medications that are coming out, like the monoclonal antibodies, and just picking randomly the Librela and the Parvo monoclonal antibodies and things like that, the new anti-allergy medications, and we're building better mousetraps and things like that. Do you believe that we are in this sort of a mixed model progress where we're going to continue to benefit and things are going to get better in some ways and there's going to be costs in other ways? Or do you think that we have really kind of flipped over where we kind of did the good stuff and now we're going to sort of steadily start getting more and more towards the extractive phase and we're kind of on a downward trend? Help me see which of those two models are you really kind of looking at?
I think we have the opportunity, especially going back to the independent hospital discussion, I think we have the opportunity to match the needs of our clients with the care that their pets deserve and still make it affordable. But we have to do it differently. I think,
and make it profitable, right?
And make it profitable. Yes, I'm not suggesting that we are philanthropic in any way, shape, or form. Although I think many veterinary hospitals consider themselves non-for-profit, but they aren't legally a tax item.
Legally, yeah.
But I do think we can do it. And I just think we have to look at new business models, new ways of doing business. We have to look at the relationship that is there. And here we are trying to provide a human healthcare level of care, a Ritz-Carlton level of service to a pet owner who is trying to balance the needs of their family from food and shoes and vacations and everything else. And as much as they love their pets, we're in this very interesting balancing act. And you were in Orlando, I was in Orlando. If I had to pick one word that had a common thread through a lot of the conversations in the hallways, the bathrooms, the lecture theaters, the word is affordability.
Yes,
and I
had that same thought, yeah.
And I think what we're talking about is it is wonderful to have the technology and the resources that are there to help pets live long, comfortable, pain-free lives. How do we make it accessible to the average person in Greenville, South Carolina, who is just trying to make ends meet?
Yeah. So I want to dive into that in a moment. When you wrote about enshittification, you said this was not a corporate problem. You said it's a systematic problem. Can you sort of talk about what is that? So if I've got a veterinary technician that's listening to this and they're like, I don't understand what this means. What does this mean for me in my hospital? In your mind, Peter, when you're looking at, your 2:00 appointment that's coming up, what does enshittification what does that actually look like? What are we talking about as far as what the practice experience is or what the client's experience?
Well, in an optimal world, the client experience, the practice experience is comfortable. It is timely, on time. It is with hospitality and greeting from people. It is a healthcare approach with a high-end restaurant, but the menu isn't just prime rib. It isn't just filet mignon. It may have a veggie burger. It may have a double patty. It may have pasta. I think it's really creating a business that is specific to the needs of the client. I think part of what we've done as a profession, and it goes back to an entire generation or more, is we've always tried to make everybody happy. Yeah. Everybody who comes through the door, no matter what their economic status is, no matter where the pet fits into the household.
Well, only people who have pets. We've only tried to make people who have pets happy.
Well, no, but we also make vendors happy.
That's true. No, yeah, okay. Good comeback.
Because this is not just the doctor and the client and the patient. There's a whole family that is part of that relationship from that standpoint. So as a veterinarian, my job and my team's job is really to learn about the person who's coming in, learn about where the pet fits into the household and have the conversation. This is where we can unshittify the enshittification. And that's communication. Communication and understanding our stakeholders better and then customizing the services and the offerings to their needs. Yes. Does it take more time? Yes. Does it take a specific type of education and training? of our staffs? Yes. Does it mean that everybody is a unique client that comes to the door? Yes. Is that something we haven't been prepared for in the past? Yes. Is it time for change? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Let me push back on you a little bit here, just because I have this question that I wrestle with a lot. And, I talk to a lot of people about spectrum of care and meeting clients where they are, and I think that's really important. And I'm a big exam room communication advocate and fan and student. And also, when I look at this, sort of, there's two different things that you've mentioned here, Peter. So one is really around communication, and which I love. It's our existing models that we have, our existing practices need to focus on communication. Earlier, and I said we'd come back to this, and here we go. Earlier, you said there's an opportunity for different models of practice, different business models, different ways of approaching care. If I said to you, Peter, I want you to try to fix this problem, how much of the effort, how much of the change do you think needs to happen on the communication side of this is where we currently, communication within the system that we currently have, and how much of it needs to be, we need to be approaching care in different ways. We need to have different business models. Is it 50-50, meaning equal between the two? Do you think that it's mostly a communication lift? Do you think it's mostly we really need to change our sort of business structures and maybe look at honest to goodness nonprofits, for example, or to really start to look at different ways of setting our practices up to give clients back what they want? How do you sort of weigh those two things, communication and new innovation around business models?
You need both. I don't think you can separate. And I think that you can segment veterinary practices into different business models. There are 35 different Marriott business models.
Really? I didn't know that. 35?
Yeah. 35 different Marriott hotel business models. Veterinary medicine is the most complex healthcare and probably the most complex business model that exists from a small business standpoint. Think about it.
Yeah.
Okay. In a veterinary hospital, the same patient client can come in the morning, get a dentistry, a colonoscopy, a pedicure, a manicure. They can stay overnight in the hotel. They can pick up a bag of food and go home with them, as well as the prescription. And we do it with a smile, and we do it with an affordable approach to things. You cannot go to a human doctor and get a manicure and a pedicure and a colonoscopy at the same time. Okay?
I mean, I know a guy, but I don't think he's taking new clients.
No, I'm sure. But the complexity of our business model has increased the cost of care, because when you're trying to do all of these things and you need all the tools, the equipment to do so, it only makes it more expensive. So what we've seen in human healthcare is simplification in many ways, where I can go to the CVS Minute Clinic and get treated for a cold.
Yeah.
I can get a blind pharmacist giving me a COVID shot. All he has to do is figure out where my shoulder is. And I'm not suggesting we want to liberalize the delivery of veterinary care completely, but I would suggest that if we could make well care more affordable, patients or pet owners may have more money to take care of sickness. They may be more compliant from that standpoint. We have to figure out a way to meet the needs of the entire bell-shaped curve of pet owners, from those who basically will spend $25,000 for a new heart valve, to those who basically are having a hard time getting a rabies shot that's mandated by law and only in certain states can be administered by a veterinarian. But I can go get a COVID shot and a flu shot by somebody who has a doctor in pharmacy. So it's really rethinking a lot of different things. But to do so, we have to communicate. We have to communicate to clients that there are available options besides my practice that can get you what you need. And I think it's not necessarily about trying to make everybody happy, but trying to make everybody who wants the care and service in your practice happy, but giving those people other options in the community that you support. Right now, if we want to survive, it's going to be about collaboration, cooperation, commiseration, and communication.
So I was talking to Dr. Jules Benson not long ago, and he says that we as a profession do a really bad job of communicating clients where we are sort of on the spectrum of options. Like, we all say that we do the highest standard of medicine, And so his sort of idea was that's a real problem in terms of getting people to where they sort of need to be to meet their needs and to have just sort of a good fit for them and also sort of a good fit for us. Peter, do you buy that idea that vets and vet clinics have generally not done a good job of messaging kind of where they are or what their niche is, or I want to say who the appropriate clients are, but honestly, like which clients are a good fit? So for example, when I walk into Trader Joe's and I see the shelves with, chocolate covered nuts of every kind, and they cost $17 for a handful, I know exactly where I am and what type of person is going to be here. But I don't know that when people walk into the vet clinic, they say, oh, I'm in Trader Joe's, or do they think that they're still in, Ingles? I mean, I don't know. Do you buy that around a failure of communication of the type of practice that people are walking into?
I think in many ways, we have veterinary practices. We don't have Ritz-Carlton veterinary practices. We don't have Motel 6 veterinary practices. We have veterinary practices. I don't think our websites basically say, we have websites that may say affordable care.
Yeah.
But whose perceptions, what is the definition of affordable? We have websites that say great client experience. But what does that mean to you versus what does it mean to your neighbor? And so I don't think we have clearly advocated for our own individual practices as much as advocated for lots of buzzwords that get people in the door. I saw a terminology for veterinary medicine. We provide gold standard medicine in a human speed world. Amazon convenience, human level empathy, budget pricing, because compared to human healthcare, it's a budget.
Yeah.
And we think we need to provide all four. What's the difficulty of providing Amazon convenience, human level empathy, budget pricing, and gold standard medicine? Look at that balancing act and the balls you have to juggle.
Yeah, there's no way. It's like, there's the old joke of like, you can have good, fast, and cheap, pick two.
Right.
And like, that's a joke, but that's also true. It speaks to the inherent nature of balancing convenience and empathy. I'm imagining empathy and access to the veterinarian, the team, and the like extended time for you. It's like, I can't be convenient for everybody if every person who comes in gets to have an hour of my time. And again, neither of those two things are bad to aspire to. I just don't know how you will handle everybody. And also there's no limit to the amount of time we'll give into an individual person.
Well, and I think that goes with part of the bigger issue that we have in this profession is the learning to use our team.
Yes.
So that Andy gets or Dr. Rourke will give you 10 minutes, but Susie and Patty will give you the time that you need from that standpoint. And we have built, and this goes back to Harriet, it goes back to Noah, the first veterinarian, that we have built doctor-centric business models and not team-centric business models. And so the more we can learn how to utilize our teams to be our case managers, to be our concierge, and we're just focused on the doctor building the relationship with the client through communication, through trust, but that our clients now trust our team so that it's not all about the doctor-centered business model, but the team-centered and client-centered business model.
I think back, we started talking about the 70s and 80s up to the 90s, and I think back 20 years, like 30 years I was coming through vet school. Peter, I feel like we have come so far towards a team model. We are not anywhere near where we need to be. I'm with you. I really do think that that's success. I think we need to get there. I think we need to get there fast. And I think we've laid a lot of really good groundwork. The training programs that we have for credentialed technicians, they really turn our technicians into excellent advocates for our practice, wonderful sources of information for our clients and customer service. And like, we have the potential for me to spend 10 minutes with a client. And I think you said Jenny and Susie, they're badass. And so we can create this incredible experience. And you're right. I think there's great potential there. Peter, my impression is that we have come a long way. You see a lot of practices. Do you think that we are moving in that direction in a meaningful way? Or do you feel like we've kind of stalled where the doctors continue to kind of hang on to a doctor-centric model? Have we hit a bump that the veterinarians really don't want to go over? Or are we still moving in the right direction?
We are still moving in the right direction.
I love to hear that.
But I am so freaking impatient that I want to move there faster.
I think we have to, yeah.
I think we need to transport ourselves very quickly because the clients expect that. We have created a huge expectation in the eyes of the clients that we are healthcare like human healthcare, except they don't want to pay for it. So I think we have to move it faster. I think we have to focus on, you're talking about the utilization of Jenny and Susie. We have to keep Jenny and Susie and give them a career path,
Yes.
not just a job, because I think the challenge comes when you're a doctor if you're constantly having to work and train and onboard and educate new team. So we don't have the ability to have our same nurse with us for 30 or 40 years, which would make your job so much easier. And let me add one more variable that needs to be even more focused on from a retention standpoint. That's the client service team, because they are ultimately the gatekeepers to whom we see and the experience that clients have. They are the people who, if we can keep, the clients come in and build a relationship with. And so it's not just the credentialed technicians or the assistants, but it's the entire veterinary team that we need to grow up together, learn each other, finish each other's sentences, and be able to build that level of trust, because trust comes from retention as well.
Gosh, I'm so on the same page with you. And so, yes, I think you and I are seeing the same thing. Peter, I have some concern in that I think that pet owners, they are also not impatient. And so they very much, they want the service. They want a more affordable solution. They want to feel like their needs are being met. And my real concern is if we as vets don't continue to flex, to evolve, to really lean into and leverage our technician and our team, my worry is that there's going to be forces that want to disrupt our industry that are going to get traction and they're going to get leverage because the clients are unhappy. This isn't working. We need to break up this system, tear these rules, which are really for the safety of the pets, tear those rules down and let us get some Amazon level direct to consumer things in here that I think ultimately can be damaging for the trust in our industry and for the pets and for the clients. But do you agree with that urgency? Do you sense this sort of outside pressure that I'm talking about?
100%. I think the external variables are putting so much pressure on the already existing internal pressure that is there, that it's contributing to all of the mental health issues that we have, the burnout, the substance abuse, and everything else. The external variables didn't exist 30 years ago. The internal variables did, but the external variables have become greater. And whether that are things such as we've seen recently on Tucker Carlson and others that are putting pressure on the profession, who is, as you know, reticent to change. And now all of these externals are putting pressure on the legislatures in the state of Florida, California, South Carolina, everywhere. A lot of the changes that have occurred in the last 6 years since the pandemic were changes that were forced upon us by the disease, but forced upon us by other investors in the profession who saw an opportunity. We as a profession haven't always grabbed opportunities when they're out there. We have fought back against them. We can look at online pharmacies as a perfect example. 25 years ago, there was a company that tried to introduce us to online pharmacies called Vetcentric, and we didn't wrap our arms around it. And so we eventually kind of have lost that because we haven't figured out how to utilize them now. But why haven't we figured out how to utilize them? Because we're fighting everybody else around us instead of trying to look for internal solutions from that standpoint. I mean, that's just one of a multitude of examples. The acceptance of technology. I mean, if we didn't have COVID, how many practices would have an online appointment book? How many
would be texting? How many would be texting? That was a huge, that was the reason to get on board.
We need to be Vikings instead of victims. And I'm not suggesting we burn the ships, but I am suggesting we need to start to take back control. And this is where independent hospitals come in, because they need to start to accept the changes that are around us and come up with new ones. And honestly, it goes back to one of my other strong points and foci, which is leadership. I mean, really, this is all about leadership and having leadership in our practices and having leaders who have a vision and have a direction that looks down the road in trying to figure out where they want to go, has a vision, and then starts to point the ship in that direction.
Yeah, I really agree with that. So no, I appreciate that you and I see sort of the same urgency. I love your optimism. I think you're spot on. I think that there are things that we can do right now to start moving our practices in these directions. I don't think we're powerless. I don't buy the idea that the world is just going to toss us around and we're clinging to our little floating barrel. Like, no, we have our own ships. Like, let's put our sails out and we can decide where we want to go. But you got to unfurl the sails, and you have to set the course, and you've got to start to push and make changes. But I think that we can. Peter, thank you so much for being here. Where can people find you online? Where can they keep up with you?
Nobody can keep up with me, Andy. You've tried.
No one keeps up with you. Yes.
LinkedIn is the best place to find me.
I'll put a link to Peter's LinkedIn profile in the show notes, guys. It's where I published the article on Enshittification in Vet Medicine. Peter, thanks for being here. Gang, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Take care of yourselves, guys. And that's what I got, guys. Thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks to Peter for being here. Gang, take care of yourselves. If you like the episode and you got a lot out of it, send it to your friends. I always love it. Or, like and review. Do all the things, to share, subscribe, all that kind of stuff that helps us keep growing the podcast. It just means the world to me. Anyway, take care of yourselves, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Bye.